CAST AIP 7.2 and then expanded and improved in 7.3. It's one of the most exciting new developments, in my opinion. And I'm going to try to walk you over the functionality and give you some quick tips and some explanation on how to use it and take advantage of it. So let's get to it. And the first things I want to talk about is what is it and why does it matter. So CAST AIP is a very powerful platform that analyzes source code and database and creates a lot of data that then are aggregated to create metrics and information that can be consumed to provide intelligence around the application software, the application portfolio, and can be used for management purposes. The REST API is a key component of these ecosystems, and is actually right in the middle and enable the access of the data that are created during the scan of the application source code. It's actually the interface that is used to power both the CAST Analytic Dashboard, the CAST Application Analytic Dashboard that you may be familiar with, is probably the most well-known component of the new platform, but also enable the report generator. Again, is an API that enables to access the information in a very simple way and can be used then to provide a smart visualization of the data to enable essentially the consumption of the CAST AIP output. Can also be used though to provide integration with business intelligence systems and development of smart dynamic analytics report that can be then used again to facilitate the consumption of the analysis output. But let's peel the onion a little bit more. Indeed, the REST API or RESTful API representation of state transfer for the people that are more technically inclined is a way to is an architecture model, and is a way to essentially browse the data using simple HTTP query. It's you can think about you can think of the REST API as an alternative, a fully featured and lightweight alternative, for that matter, of web services and remote procedure call. So using a simple HTTP query, you can access the representation of the data and thus avoiding the complexity of writing complex SQL query for accessing the database schema that are behind that are the core of the CAST AIP platform. I have here an example on this slide of what a REST API query look like. And you can see here that, for example, this is a GET request, and this particular is a get of results that are stored in the CAST AIP. You have a number of qualifier and an expander that can be used to that can be attached to the simple URL of the results information to then qualify further what type of results this should be displayed and delivered to the end user. The response is actually encoded using JSON, is JavaScript object notation, is a pairwise notation, is a very simple structure that is used to essentially represent the data. From a different perspective, the REST API, using a RESTful API is not different than browsing a web page. The web page is encoded in HTML and then is displayed through the browser. The same thing happens with the JSON query. JSON is a way to represent the data and is displayed through an appropriate browser or actually a RESTful client that can be used for that. And CAST has one of his own that enables to easily navigate through this information. But we'll look at it a little bit later. Why is that important? Because through the REST API you can create lots of very interesting and dynamic visualization. I have here a screenshot, few screenshots of some of the one that we developed so far, both as study or for some of our clients as a demonstration of the capability. So it's a simple way to, for example, display you know, the same data, the same information that you find on the AAD, but then integrate those data, for example, with upmark results to maybe compare application performance versus a benchmark, either an industry benchmark or the internal benchmark. Maybe could be used to create a dashboard, like in this case, is a productivity dashboard, as you see in the lower left corner of this slide, where data are actually some key KPI are computed and can be accessed and visualized according to some criteria. For example, the country where the application is developed, maybe the offshore location or the onshore location, and so forth. Or you can, you can also, as I show here, an example of dashboard and visualization in Excel. You can also build visualization in other tools, like for example Tableau. Tableau software is one of these, the leading vendor of data visualization tool, and I show you an example of a productivity dashboard built in Tableau. Again, the REST API is behind any and all of this visualization, and can enable all sort of you know, different ways to represent the data, maybe correlating with data that exists outside of CAST within the organization, and thus creating additional value, additional insight about the analysis results. You can also go beyond the visualization, and here I have the two examples. For example, where the REST API can be leveraged to support advanced portfolio analysis. For example, this is on the top left corner here, there's an example of a cluster analysis on the portfolio where all the application gets compared according to a number of selected dimensions, for example, technical depth, size in automated function point count, but also in terms of production incident and other things like that. And you know, using statistical algorithm, you can create, you can do a cluster analysis, grouping the application, and then identify through this analysis, for example, area of potential improvement within your portfolio that you can target for certain type of activity or remediation and so forth. You can also use it to create. You can also use the REST API to create operational report, like for example, this example developed in ClickSense, another vendor of supplier of data visualization tool, where we are, for example, tracking the action plan execution and the backlog that exists for this action plan that has been created after the analysis. And for example, you can discriminate what team is more responsive to the remediation recommendation account for the analysis center, and things like that. And you can measure this exactly as you measure the number of you know, web calls or issues that are raised against a project. Okay, so again, REST API as enabler of operational report, operational metrics. So how do I get, now that we understand how the REST API, what the REST API is and what you could do with it, how do I get started to use it? I try to build here a very simple three-step approach to give you a sense of how easy it is to get started with the REST API and build this type of visualization or this type of report. There's essentially three steps, as I said. Connect to the REST API, and the first question is, which REST API should I use? There are two available in the application. They are more or less, they are practically the same, but I'm going to expand a little bit and explain the differences. Then we are talking about, we are going to look at the REST web application that is a small browser, that is maybe a small application used to browse the REST API and discover, for example, the structure of the responses, build interactively your query, and so forth. And then the last steps I'm going to show here specifically how to take and consume the output of the REST API response directly in an Excel file. I choose Excel because the ubiquitous of the platform, because it's easy, everybody has it, and it's easy to use it as well. But you can do the same thing as well with other type of tools, and I'm sure you have all inside your company business intelligence tools and visualization tools that you may be interested in integrating with. Without further ado, let's start with the first step. So there are, as I mentioned, there are two REST API available within the platform. I'm trying to depict here, this is the CAST AP, and as you know, there are a number of database schema that are created during the installation of CAST AP, and it stores the results of the analysis. And some of them are the central database, right? And you know, given management, central and local. The central is where the data are stored, the information related to the analysis are stored. And this database can be connected directly to the REST API Word file. This Word file is part of the distribution of CAST AP 7.2 and 7.3 and can be configured to connect directly to the different central schema that hosts, again, as I said, the results of the analysis of the specific applications. There's also another Word file that you probably are more familiar with. It is the one that powers the Application Analytic Dashboard. You can use either one of these files. There are, of course, these Word files to connect and extract information. There are, of course, limitations in the sense that the AAD Word file is only limited to the data that are displayed on the Application Analytic Dashboard, while the REST API Word file is a little bit more rich in terms of information because, for example, you can extract information around transactions, around action plans and things like that that are not aggregated within the Application Analytic Dashboard. So the selection, choosing the Word file to use for connecting and extracting data depends on the type of information you want to extract. As of today, the difference is very limited. It's only limited to, again, as the action plan and the transaction. In the future, the REST API Word file will be more and more will be expanded to support access to all the information that are available on the engineering dashboard, the traditional CAST dashboard. And I'm not going to show you how to install and configure these two files. The information are readily available if you need help on the documentation, and I included here a link on how to do that. It's very simple, so forgive me if I assume that this is not a non-issue. The second step is that I'm gonna go to the actual demo of this capability a little bit later. The second step is to use the REST web application to connect to the Word file, the selected Word file, and browse the information that are available in the API and build your own query. And maybe I'm gonna stop here. I'm actually gonna show you what this looks like. So here is the Application Analytic Dashboard, right? To connect to the REST API behind the Analytic Dashboard, I just delete everything up to the word AAD, and I type static default HTML. That opens my REST API browser windows. The first thing that we'll have to do is I will have to log in to the REST API. In this case, I have already a session established through the AAD, so I don't need to do it, but you can log in with the same credential that you use to log in into the AAD. And as you see it, my session is active. At this point, I can simply submit the query, and I will practically submit a query with no information, and you will see that I can access here the AAD dashboard, that is the system view. I can then follow the hyperlink that are available here to very quickly and very simply browse to the information that are available in the AAD. So for example, here I'm looking at the results for all the applications that are on the AAD. right? And you see all the results. I can also look at the response, and this is a rendering of the JSON response that has been received. You can also look at the JSON results by clicking on the raw response, and you will see here the actual JSON. As I mentioned before, JSON is a very simple pairwise notation where each element has a name and a value. The structure that you can build in JSON can be more complicated. Like in this case, we have a date is actually a list of 2 elements, but you also have array. For example, application results. You see the square brackets is an array of, and this is again a list of components underneath. So very simple to build and browse the REST API by either following hyperlink or by browsing the quick help that is available online. Building simple query, and there are some explanation here how this query can be built. So it's a very interactive tool. It comes very handy when you have to do some more complicated query. Let me switch back to the PowerPoint presentation to talk about the next step. Once you have access to the web application, you can there build your own query. You can test it. You can browse your JSON response. Now the next step is to consume the output of the query into Excel. And this is actually very simple. We have it's very simple because we have found a very powerful Visual Basic applications as an open source, and you have the link right there as a resource in this presentation. That essentially is a pair of Visual Basic classes that can be used to query the REST API, parse the JSON response, and write the information back into an Excel files. The main challenge that you have when trying to parse the JSON response in an Excel file is the fact that JSON structure are actually multidimensional. As I mentioned, as showed before, there's array, there's list. They can be very structured. Excel, on the other hand, is two-dimensional in nature. Every table has a row and a column. Potentially, you have a 3-dimension. You have also a worksheet that you can use, but you cannot go more than. You don't have many more dimensions than that. So the issue is to flatten out the JSON response back into Excel, and I show you how to do that. The first things I want to point out is that the query itself, actually to query the REST API and to populate Excel, is a simpler one-liner. And I have here a prototype code where you can, for example, see you can use the CAST REST API wrapper that we created. This is called the CAST query, the primitive behind it, that use a number of parameters. In this case, it's the worksheet name, the REST API name that has to be initialized within the code, and then the actual query itself. And the last 2 items here are the username and password. I want to show you now a simple worksheet that I will make available after this. This makes the process even easier. What I have here is very simply is a simple table that where you can type the username and password, the REST API root path. So this is if I switch back again, let's see if I can overlay the 2 images. The root path is the actual, you can see here I have the URL name up to AD, and to the URL names, this one. And then I have the root path is actually the server name of the response. This is what I passed here. The other things I need to put here is the sheet where I want the response to be returned, and the REST API query and the query itself. Now, what I did here, and I'm going to show you quickly in this view here, I want to build my query. And as you see here, I have asked for the results. But then I want to qualify what type of results. I want to, for example, derive all the quality indicators. and I want this to be equal, I miss an N, and I want this to be equal to, when I extract the TQI, and you see here in my table the TQI has a key ID of 617. That's the same key ID that I have to type here. Then what I also want to have, I want to select all the application. Actually, I want to select all the snapshots. And I have, again, the documentation is very helpful for this. But you can see I just append the qualifier and the expander that I need to add to the question, to the query. And I want to pick my application. I want to pick one application, and in this case it's finance. Right, so I choose, I want to essentially see all the TQI results for all the snapshots for the application finance. I submit my query, and it should be coming back pretty quickly. Now something did not work as intended because it did not filter, but believe me, when you get the syntax right, it works. What I wanted to show you here is the JSON file, because now what we are going to do is that we have to extract this information into my report. So I have already prepared here my spreadsheet where I want the TQI information to be populated. But I want to show you what I want to pick the date of the snapshot. So in this case, what I need to do, you see the date is here, and then the ISO date is the first element of the list in the pair notation, the JSON pair notation that represents the date. So in the spreadsheet, I simply put a column header that is date.json date, ISO date, sorry. Same thing for application. I want to pick the application name, so I pick application and then the name, so I use the dot notation, the dot operator between the two. For application results, it's a little bit more complicated because application results has an array of elements. So I could have picked, and I can, when I look at the JSON, I will recognize very quickly that there is only one element in the array. So I decided to pick the first element. And then I want to pick, within the first elements, I want to pick the results. Again, this is the list. So results and the grade. I already know that is the TQI. So you see that very simply, I just told my Visual Basic parser to pick this field from the JSON response. So the next thing to do is to just execute the query. So I just execute the query. And if I go back to my TQI response, I have my results for all the snapshots for the finance application. So the next thing I want to do is I want to show you how simple it is to build a visualization. I'm going to do the same thing now. Very quickly, I'm going to just change the query, pick a different query for the function point. Again, pre-built for easy of presentation, but you see it's very simple. Is results. Then I want from the results I want to extract the size in measure. I pick the identifier, the key identifier for application function point, and I want all snapshots, and I want the application financial again. So click go, and this will populate my AFP results. Copy, paste, and here you have it. Very simply calculated a very interesting visualization that would be otherwise very difficult to create. This shows cost per function point over time, over the release of the application, correlated with the TQI, and that shows very, very clearly what's happening in your portfolio. Again, this is just an example. I'm using demo data, so it's not necessarily the meaningful in terms of conclusion that you can derive from this, but you can see it's very simple to use this spreadsheet or build your own query and your own code for building the stuff. Actually, this spreadsheet includes a number of other queries that are already being developed and tested, and you will find here, this actually is the name of the worksheet that you could use, and is actually hidden, so you can just unhide it and show it to see the actual, for example, if I pick technical debt here, you see the example of the response that comes back when you query for the technical debt. So this spreadsheet will be made available after this session for all of you to use. We may have been running a little bit over time. I don't know if you have time for questions. If there is no questions at this time, feel free to reach out to me. Again, my contact information are on the first page of the presentations, and I'll be happy to provide answer those questions or provide any additional information. All material, presentation, recording, as well as the Excel spreadsheet that I show you will be posted for all to use later on. There's a question on the chat line. I think it has to do with the security. The REST API by itself is an unsecure interface. It's not like SOAP or web services where the security is built into the protocol. REST API is not a protocol, it's an architecture. The security is realized through the HTTP layer. So if you have you set up the REST API for accessing via HTTPS, for instance, you will go to HTTPS. The authentication mode that we support in the CAST REST API is just the basic authentication, so is a username and password encrypted. I don't remember if it's a 64-bit encryption or whatever it is, but it's a very basic authentication. So the security has to be built as part of the deployment of the REST API on your Tomcat server. So building as part of an HTTPS type connections. I don't see any other question on the chat line. Again, any question, any follow-up, feel free to contact me. I'll make available all the information that I showed you today, and I'll be very happy to help you to put the REST API into use for whatever you are trying to achieve. Thanks. Looking forward to see you again very soon in February next year. Thank you.